There have been some controversies. Of course, I don't have to tell you, but I will tell you. The CPEP matter, URP, the way that the government has been dealing with crime, the state of emergency, these death threats against a number of your colleagues. What's your assessment?
35% reduction in violent crime and murder is massive in the first 6 months of 2025. That's massive. PNM could take some credit for some of it. This government did everything that it could to take us to a place where we're starting to feel safer. The business community have publicly said they're feeling safer. They're seeing it on the ground, that crime is down, physically down. So there's that. You asked about CPEP and URP. I said on an interview on another station, we came into office on a massive high, full-blown sales. We won, special majority, people happy. And then the Honorable Kamla Prasad, predecessor, Minister of Public Utilities, Honorable Barry Padarat, they had to deal with, in that Public Utilities Ministry that had responsibility for WASAN, TNTEC, and CPEP, massive corruption. Massive corruption. It's in the courts. A judge stayed a matter and sent it to the DPP. That was a matter where the contractor was suing the state for firing them. And the judge said this had to go to the Director of Public Prosecutions. When you see that, every one of the cases brought against the state by the CPEP contractors have all collapsed, appeal, all, everything. They've lost all. And it's telling you that it's not hyperbole, it's reality, that the CPEP was infected. And it was hard to deal with because you had to look at 10,000 workers and you had to know that you're dealing with those 10,000 workers through these contractors. Yes. And it is the contractors that you want to get rid of. So we could, hindsight is 2020, you know. You and I could sit down here and talk for all of the live long day as to how you would have treated 10,000 workers. But the contractors is what they were addressing because a government, days before an election, without cabinet approval, lied to a board and signed renewals of contracts illegally, criminal matters that are before the courts now. That had to be dealt with. How do you deal with that? When you find out that within your 10,000 workers, and especially the Honorable Khadija Amin, URP, had to address the fact that we were infected and were financing the very gangs that ministers of national security come on your show for years and tell you they're dealing with the gangs, they're dealing with the gangs. What they meant was they was really dealing with the gangs. Mm-hmm. They were financing gang culture in Trinidad Tobago through CPEP, URP, reforestry. And these things had to be addressed. If we are going to get to where we want to go, if we are going to keep the promises we made, if you want crime to come down, you have to dismantle the gangs. The Honorable Attorney General John Jeremy has outlined how that goes. And he is very clear in his mind. He said in the parliament, I sat there and I watched this man say, what we just dealt with was worse than 1990. And if people in 1990 had taken the steps that we had just taken, because it wasn't just declaring a state of emergency, it was dealing with the actual issues. They're in pursuit of people right now that they know are instrumental into what was supposed to be a massive attempt at overthrow. There's a tax against government. This is not a little thing that we're dealing with. The talking heads could call it controversies. A government being attacked by forces aligned to political operatives.
But you feel that the government has been successful in addressing the issue as you would have placed it. I would have spoken to Minister Padarat some weeks ago, and he did speak about the transition period where the CPEP and the URP and so on, it would be investigated. And then I think that he gave the impression at that time, well, when that is done, the 10,000 workers who have been severed, that, you know, there's going to be a return of these jobs. I mean, again, I can only ask you that you're not the minister.
Not the minister.
But I don't know if I can even ask for an assessment, but how far you feel that the government is along?
We're very far along. The Prime Minister sent a message to all of us. Mm-hmm. Find jobs. Look at in your ministries where there are vacancies. You would see ministries publishing daily education, healthcare, housing. We've been putting out job vacancies for people to try and absorb as many as possible. But I want to ask a question. Why do we have so many people unemployed on make-work schemes in Trinidad and Tobago, and we have 150,000 Venezuelans living here? So they're doing well, they're prospering, they're living, so obviously they're working. So our 12, 15,000 people that in these make-work schemes and stuff, obviously been pushed out. In the Ministry of Housing, I said this in the Senate, in the months leading up to the election, government ministers instructed the person responsible for estate management to hire 600 people. Where? He said, where? They said, find the work. So he find work for them. They come back a week later and tell him it's not 600, it's 2,300. And he said, but there's no material, there are no tools, there are no jobs for them. Pay them. We come into office with these 2,300 people having been employed by the HDC and the Ministry of Housing, and no money to pay them. They didn't even have money to vote for them. And we had to find that Minister Lee convened the management of the HDC and said, no matter what, you all hire these people, we have to pay these people. But those are examples of the political manipulation of state agencies in the lead up to the election, handing out housing keys, ministers driving around with keys and giving it to people. You want to vote for me, take a house. That is insane. That is not how a country is supposed to be run. That's misuse of taxpayers' funds. That's misbehavior in public office, and more of that going to come out. I know the wheels of justice move slow, but they're moving. And you're going to see at least one government minister is going to be before the courts for that. And you've seen that through the process, and the government is engaging persons.
You mean a past government minister?
Past government minister.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, a former government minister.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that for yourself. I mean, again, I am not trying to kick a damaged dog. They've done this to themselves. They put themselves here. They thought that they were going to win this election. They did things that, I mean, they wanted their operatives to shred stuff in the Ministry of Housing. They did things that were criminal misbehavior. And the wheels of justice are turning. But to call them controversies is not controversies. You come into a government in a country that 5, 6, approaching 700 people going to die in 1 year from murder. That is unacceptable. We have to deal with these issues, and the only way to deal with it is to unfund, dismantle, break up the gang culture. That is the Prime Minister's mandate. She has strong...
Now we have heard various politicians speak very, very strong in the past, and today we are still dealing with threats coming from the nation's prisons. We are still dealing with ministers being threatened. Yeah. We are still dealing with murders.
Unlike the past administrations, though, you see a government that is very strongly capable, clear on what is the requisite action. The Attorney General created a prison in the base and sent those who needed to be out of the system where they could have been manipulating communications. They're not supposed to be able to get their information on the front page of the papers. Prisoners was running the show. Gang leaders was running the show. That has now stopped.
You feel that...
We don't know this is done.
You feel that the government is doing things to permanently deal with this situation?
Oh no, they're fully in control. I was going to tell you just now.
Go ahead.
The team that you have there, Devesh Maharaj, Wayne Sturge, the Attorney General, the Honorable Attorney General John Jeremy, Roger Alexander, that team, and a lot of other junior ministers that are part of this, are very clear about this. This goes in this term. That is the Prime Minister's mandate. She tell us 20,000 houses have to happen. She tell them the gang culture ends in this term. It has to happen.
All right. Minister, I just have about a minute again. Anything else you'd like to tell us before you leave us this
Next
morning?
Saturday, me as Shadow MP, this is what I was hoping to talk to you about. Me as Shadow MP for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, we're doing a massive back-to-school drive for children throughout the community. Again, this is an initiative led by the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa. And we're also doing a lot of hampers, and we're making it into a family day. It is the Saturday of Independence Weekend, and we'll be doing it at the grandstand at the Queen's Park Savannah. Of course, it is for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, so they will need to have some kind of ID and a proof of address to show that they're constituents. But we're creating a family day for them, and you could check. I was actually going to give some phone numbers.
Yeah, you have it.
I don't have it on me. I'll have to scroll on the
Can we check your social media platforms for
everything.
information?
It'll be there on all of those platforms, yes.
Yeah. Minister Alexander, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Please come again.
Always a pleasure being here.
We are coming back, everybody.